Hi, good morning. We are starting the July podcast, and it's brilliant if you're following this session. So, today we are going to talk about women, impact on women in business due to spinal health and menopause. If you watch me, it is about our work in the business transformation and integration space, which means I work with a lot of women in business and who go through different stages in life. And it's quite interesting to talk about this subject. So, without further ado, we will be having a candid conversation with Alison Marsden, who is spinal health and menopause specialist. So let's bring in, welcome Alison, and I'm really excited to talk about, all the symptoms that we are going to cover and how we can help women in business understanding the impacts they are having due to spinal health and menopause.
Thank you, Lippy. I'm really looking forward to this conversation because there's so much that people don't know and it can help them immensely.
So let's start with, we can talk about different stats, and I was recently going through, trying to figure out what is the percentage of women and women in senior positions who have left the workforce. And I was looking more from after COVID, and we can talk in more details about what is the percentage of women who has left workforce due to this symptoms or challenges in their work life. I found that it is 1.5% of women leaving workforce in senior positions, down from 72.6% to 71.8%, which is not much if you just look at generally women leaving workforce. But I would like to understand a little bit more from you. What is your research saying, and what is the impact, and what is the percentage of women you have found out leaving the workforce?
Well, I've researched this, and I found that 10% of women actually leave their job because of menopausal symptoms.
Okay.
So they actually leave their job. And the people who are actually at work, 90% of them actually get symptoms. So 90% of the women's workforce get menopausal symptoms. And 14% of them are on HRT. And the interesting thing is that a third of women who have menopausal symptoms have to wait 3 years before their symptoms are correctly diagnosed as menopausal related. Because the most common misdiagnosis is depression. And there's 4 other categories. We've got chronic fatigue. So that's misdiagnosed as chronic fatigue. Irritable bowel syndrome, fibromyalgia, and cystitis and thrush. So those symptoms can be alleviated if they knew it's menopausal, but they go down a little rabbit hole of wrong medication, and the people get really worried because they think there's something wrong with them, and really it's a natural process.
Okay, that's quite serious because hearing about, and obviously we don't hear much about this. Yes, depression, and recently the term that I have been hearing more about, and this has started from COVID, brain fog, and which is one of the symptoms that came out from COVID, is about the brain fog. And you talked about so many depressions, so many different symptoms, depression, and all the other symptoms. We want to understand a little bit more, and let's talk about when does it start, and how to identify that women are going through this kind of symptoms in their system.
It's very difficult to know because your periods might not be irregular. So you can still have regular periods and still be going through the perimenopause. So just for clarity, perimenopause is when you're in that transition, and the menopause is when you've made the transition for your periods to have stopped. So if we use the term perimenopausal, then that's the transition period, which is a tricky bit because you don't know you're going through it. That's the problem. I mean, some people get really obvious signs, like they start with hot flushes and they then know what's going on. But if they're feeling very depressed, or they've got aching joints, but their periods are still regular, then it's very difficult for them to think, oh, I could be perimenopausal.
Okay.
So it's
Do
worth
you think
going.
it lasts for a couple of months, 2 years? How long this transition phase could be?
Perimenopausal transition could be 10 years, can be up to 10 years.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's why it's really important for you to start addressing diet and lifestyle. Because in a lot of situations that women are already at their brim, they haven't got a healthy diet and lifestyle, and they've got a lot of work pressures. And so when the perimenopausal phase comes in, it's very easy to tip over. And then they get these symptoms that they struggle to cope with.
Okay.
Whereas if you can address it with diet and lifestyle, the stress level and your general health takes you much further away from that edge. And so when you go through the transition of a drop in estrogen, it's not such a big impact on your body.
Okay. And from your experience, where do usually women go to talk to their GP or going to find that out? So what is the natural way of women finding this out and then talk to somebody and who can help them in terms of during this transition phase? What's your suggestion?
Well, find a good doctor, because there are some doctors that know far more than others, can always get a second opinion. And there is a charity, the Menopause Charity, that you can get lots of helpful resources from there.
I see.
Yeah. So, and if you've got any doubt, always say, could I be going through the perimenopausal stage? Yeah. Is there something else going on here? So always have that little flag of, hey, I'm past 30 now, I'm having these health conditions. Mm-hmm. What's going on? Because some people could be just 32 going through the perimenopause.
It varies from person to person. So it's not at a specific age that you can be hit with this kind of symptoms.
Yeah. And you should have it really early, because the body's gone through some major trauma, because that can bring it on prematurely. Then when the stress is reduced, your periods might come back. And then you go through another perimenopausal later on in life. Yeah. So stress is the number one thing to help look at. And women, they're put under a lot of stress at work. We always have to do better than the men, it's a challenge.
All the pressures are always there, and always lots of juggling with lots of things at the same time, obviously at home, at work, outside. Juggling around so many things, and also trying to identify, listening to their own body and trying to identify all this kind of symptoms. And I think that's where this transition phase is quite missed out. And did you see from your experience where these are kind of not diagnosed or people didn't identify it? Is there any kind of research backing there to say that, it doesn't get diagnosed at the right time?
Yeah, no, it doesn't. And that's the statistic. There's a third of women have to wait 3 years before the symptoms are correctly diagnosed. So they go down these holes thinking, oh, I've got fibromyalgia, or I've got depression or chronic fatigue, when all it is the perimenopausal symptoms. Yeah.
Okay.
And if you get a good doctor, he or she might say, let's look at diet and lifestyle first, because they're the things that can help you manage this transition much more smoothly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
let's talk about interesting what you have said, and quite interesting to think about what are the different symptoms that women can have. So let's talk about what is a prevention, what is a cure, and what can women do, women in business. And sometimes it could be pressure depending on which sector, which industry women are working, which positions women are working. So what, and again, in the workplace, do they have the policies to support women during this period, during this transition phase?
Yeah. that's a good point.
Because I was looking at some research where someone was saying that 6.3% noting that the place of work has not introduced any kind of policy. And that all means first identifying yourself and trying to make a change in your lifestyle so that you can cope with all the challenges that is thrown at you through life. So let's talk about prevention. Yeah. What can women do?
So let's talk about that then. So the biggest thing is the managing stress.
Okay.
Because when your estrogen levels drop, that's the love hormone. It chills you out. Yeah. So if you have a drop in it, then your body will give this report that there's a bit of anxiety, stress. Absolutely. And if you've already got stress coming in, then it tips you over. Yeah. So if you can start to reduce stress, there's two approaches to reducing stress. You can avoid it or get the antidote to it. Yeah. So some stress we find it really difficult to avoid, and we just need to make sure we de-stress ourselves afterwards.
Yeah.
So, and this is a link between spinal health and your perimenopausal symptoms, because I specialize as in movement, and we have this amazing weight at the top of our spine, and you can see that the center of gravity is in front of its pivot point. So my fingers are mirroring the first vertebra, and so you can see that it's unstable and it will rock forwards. And if we allow our neck to free up, then our head bounces on top of our spine, and it frees up these nerves that are coming out of our vertebrae, and one of them is called the vagus nerve, and that's the one that is a major nerve in the rest and digest phase. And if it's under pressure, that we get stress, and when we get stressed, we scrunched our head. Yeah, we have this habit of tipping our head back. And when we're looking at screens, sometimes we poke our head forward, and then it squashes that nerve and sends a message to your brain. There's something stressful going on. Yeah. So if we're able to free up this, then it'll send a message the stress has reduced, and it will calm you down. So when you get one of the things that you can get is a little panic attack.
Yeah.
And you feel your heart palpitations. So because you're getting a drop in estrogen, then you can use this process of breathing out through your mouth and allowing your neck to release to help you through that transition. Yeah, so it's very practical, and I've got a guide through it on my website and my blog if you want to know more detail. But you're just breathing out through your mouth and allowing your neck to soften. And it just sends a message to your brain that things aren't quite as stressful as you think they are.
That's quite simple. The way you have said it, it sounds very simple, but the way we get stressed and all in a crunching position, and we are all sending that stress signal. So all we have to do is breathe in and breathe out, and doing that kind of. And how long should one do? And what is the normal practice that one should do to release our stress level?
So you could actually do it in the moment, and you could just do, say, 10 breaths.
Okay.
Just to help alleviate that stress response. Or you could actually come away. You could, if it's really bad and you're at work, go to the first aid room and just lie down and just do some breathing. Because the transition, our body only reports changes.
Okay.
If something's constant, it filters it out of our awareness. So it's a fundamental thing for us to change our habits and learn about this transition to the perimenopause. Our body only reports changes. So if there's a change in estrogen, our body then says, oh, something's not right, and it goes into palpitations, hot flushes, whatever symptom that you're having. So all you need to do is just manage that transition, because when your body gets used to that low level of estrogen, it stops the symptoms. And that's the key thing that you'll hopefully understand. You research this a little bit more, that our body needs to get used to lower levels of estrogen.
Right.
And it's just the transition that we get these symptoms on. Once your body's used to it, the symptoms subside. Yeah.
Okay.
And this is why the doctors sometimes recommend that HRT look at lifestyle and diet first, because when you're on HRT, you're artificially keeping your estrogen levels high.
Right. Okay.
You can't manage the transition. But ultimately, you want your body to get used to lower levels of estrogen. But your adrenals will start producing estrogen, and your ovaries slow down on the production of estrogen. So that's the other thing that you're trying to balance.
So trying to get used to this low level of energy. But you touched upon the point about diet. So is there any diet that can help this transition phase, or even after the transition?
Yeah, so that's a good point, because even after the transition, you want to maintain this diet. So our diet in the Western world has got a very high level carbohydrate, particularly in England. And when your body takes in carbohydrate, it needs to produce insulin. And insulin needs estrogen to work. So estrogen is responsible, plays a part in balancing your blood sugar levels. So if you've got a drop in estrogen going on, and then you have carbohydrates, your body's going to have to use that limited amount of estrogen to maintain your blood sugar levels. And then you've got none left to maintain bone density, healthy skin. That's where thrush and cystitis comes in, all those other things. So it's as if you've got a precious amount of estrogen that you don't want wasted. And if we eat carbohydrates, it's like you're wasting it just to balance your blood sugar levels. But if we can turn our diet more into protein and fat, then we haven't got the wastage of estrogen then. And just to add another note there, Lippy, that when you're going through the perimenopause, and then when you're in the menopause, that's when your periods are stopped after a year, then your brain actually switches energy from carbohydrates to fat. So in other words, your brain uses fat as energy and not carbohydrate. And this is where the brain fog comes in, because the brain can't use carbohydrate like it used to as energy. It has to use fat. So analogy, you could say with energy, you've got gas and electric. And basically when when you're young, you're using electricity. And then when you go through the menopause, you actually want to start using gas. So it's the same thing, because our bodies will want to use fat as energy for our brain.
That's a very good analogy, actually.
Yeah, we need to let go of this idea of, less fat. I'm putting on weight, so I want to have less fat. That's a misunderstanding.
So what is renewable energy? So that's intrigued me in terms of understanding what is renewable energy analogy. Is it more on the diet, that these are the diet that you can use and it will be kind of renewable within your body and get used to? So there are two changes. The body goes through the change and the brain also gets through that change during this transition phase, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, our body, our liver, if you rest, if you give it the chance to rest, our liver will recycle protein.
Okay.
So it's this thing of looking at giving your organs the rest that it needs so it can do these other functions, because our liver will detoxify and do cellular regeneration, which is really key during the perimenopause and menopause, because you feel as if your cells are aging, because estrogen is the hormone that produces new cells, that plays a part in producing new cells. So you want to support your organs that help that process as much as possible, so it can still do that cellular regeneration.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about your journey, Alison, and to give the audience a view of, you have been working in the IT industry, and then you made this transition into this world. So we would like to understand what helped you, and you live in Lake District, to provide a retreat in different kind of retreats. You live with your 2 teenagers. So tell us about your journey. How did you make your transition, and what can you provide? What kind of retreats do you provide to your clients?
Yeah. Thanks, Lynn. Well, my journey, I started unknowingly going through the perimenopause when I was also having relationship problems. And at that time, I was self-employed doing this work that I'm doing now. And I found I had hot flushes, panic attacks, and soft bones. They were the key things that I had. So I've been running for years, and obviously when you go through the perimenopause, your energy, you have fluctuations of energy. But I knew that if I went for a short run, it would improve my bone density. Yeah.
Okay.
And I actually felt it in my breastbone. I thought even along my collarbone and my breastbone, I could feel, oh, this isn't right. I'm getting. So I'd go for short runs, and that would help stimulate my body to produce more bone. And I then did yoga with weights.
I see.
Because you're doing a very slow move with a weight in your hand.
Yeah.
And then that helps build bone density here. Yeah.
Okay.
Also, if you do weights, a simple routine just before you go to bed, because
Okay.
the whole thing about doing weight-bearing exercise is that it stimulates your body to produce estrogen. And our ovaries are going to bed with that during the perimenopause, but our adrenals are coming up. They're the ones that are producing it now.
Yeah.
And so you can stimulate your body, your adrenals, to produce estrogen with slow weight bearing movements. Yeah. And so I do it just before I go to bed, because it promoted good quality sleep. So estrogen helps you get to sleep. So if you've got low estrogen, you'd wake up in the middle of the night and then you can't get back to sleep.
Yeah.
So it helped me just get to bed and get that rest. So that's the 2 things. And obviously diet. So if we touch on diet.
Yeah.
So there is this thing of switching, turning the direction to the boat away from carbohydrates and towards fats.
Okay.
And obviously we want good fats. Yeah. Not trans fatty acids.
Yeah.
Proper fats. Vegetable fats and some animal fats if you're not vegetarian or vegan. So, and the fats help you produce estrogen as well. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So the diet, what I suggest to people, because that's the thing I specialize in, I'm a food coach as well.
Okay.
So women, they're already at their brim with what's going on in their life. And to introduce a diet change is sometimes too much. So what I suggest is that they just choose a really easy 24-hour period where they can change their habits. So one of the easiest things, you could say, right, I'm going to make my evening meal a lot lighter, just one day a week, and designate that day. So I do Sunday night because it helps me sleep better. Helps reset my microflora, because that's another thing, when people get irritable bowel symptoms.
Yeah.
The estrogen causes a fluctuation in your microflora. So it helps reset your gut flora, good quality sleep, and then wakes you up in the morning, hopefully with an appetite. So you'll have some breakfast. Yeah.
Okay.
And you want a protein and a fat breakfast. That's the thing that you're working with. So you stabilize blood sugar levels.
And are there any ways to help anybody watching this video? And is there any offer that you would like to share? They
Yeah.
would like to book a retreat with you. What do you offer today?
Yeah, so I would like to offer you a voucher for 50% off. I do an online class. It's called the Stillness class. It's just half an hour. So you can get a 50% discount off that. Or you can have a full consultation and you get 50% off that. But I also offer free 20-minute telephone consultation just to see if I can help you, or if I can't, then I might be able to put you in touch with someone who can. And my yoga retreat, I've just got 2 places left. So that's in the Lake District on the 5th of August.
See, okay.
So if you're interested in the discount, then the code to use is ZEND50. So it's ZEND as in Delta,
Yeah.
50. And it's 50% discount.
Brilliant. And I'm sure you will have some interesting conversation, people watching through this. And I'm really delighted to hear about, we went through the journey, understand how women get impacted on the business. And I do see that because I work in the change and transformation where it involves people, business, technology, and across women working through different demographics. So it's really interesting to hear about where we totally don't have an understanding, where we have to wait so much of time because we don't usually have an understanding of what are usually the symptoms. Now we know the symptoms. The next thing is about what can we do about it, and finally, how can we create a healthy lifestyle through understanding and listening to our body and take actions. And I think that's most important in terms of what actions we are taking. So thank you very much, Alison. Any last words you would like to share your knowledge? And last few words before closing?
Yeah, I was going to say, don't wait until you think you're going through the perimenopause. Start preparing for it now.
Absolutely.
Make those steps for lifestyle and diet changes.
Thank you very much. Thanks for coming to my podcast show.
You're welcome. Thank you, Lupi.